Got a couple stand-up dates to remind you guys about. Every Tuesday night this month of November, we will be over at the Block in the Rio Rancho Bernalillo area. Show starts at 8, ends at 9:30. It's been an amazing venue so far. Kick-ass shows. Come out and see it. All of them are hosted by my boy AJ De Leon. Then this Friday and Saturday, November 8th and 9th at 7 and 9:30, I will be hosting and opening for Caroline Ray at Casales Comedy Club. I am beyond excited for this. Tickets are almost sold out. They're going to sell out. Get them now. They are going to sell out. And then at the end of the month, on the 22nd at 8 p.m., we're doing another show at Safe House in downtown Albuquerque. Now let's get into the podcast. All right. Hello, everyone watching. Starting a lot bit late tonight. So whether you're watching this live right now, it's about, I want to say 11 o'clock. Yep, 11 o'clock New Mexico time, or you're watching this in the coming days. I appreciate you checking this out. I never get comfortable saying this, but if you would do me a favor and like, subscribe, all that stuff, really helps out. So this is going to be a very interesting one. And if you notice behind me, I'm not going to have any sponsorship behind me. I had my show promo, but I didn't have any ads, and there won't be any ads for this episode. This is going to be entirely my political views. As of right now, we are 24 hours out from Donald Trump becoming the president-elect of the United States. And my ad sponsors are great, by the way. My sponsors are amazing. They are not the ones that went and told me to remove any of the product placement or the ads. I told them I was going to do that. So I just want to get that out there. They're amazing companies. Go support them. Chop Chili and HDR. So essentially what I would like to do over the next, and I'll be monitoring the chat as much as I can, but I will be sticking to my points tonight for the most part. And please stick around to the end because I do have a little announcement at the end. Over the next, I hope, to an hour and a half. My goal is to not convince anybody of anything. If I do convince somebody of something positive, that'd be great. But basically what I want to do right now is I want to state my case as to why I voted for Donald Trump, why I voted for the Republican Party, and what I believe is more important, why I voted against Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party machine apparatus, whatever you'd like to call it. I never thought I'd say this, but I want to start really quick with something that Bernie Sanders put out. I don't know if anybody saw this earlier today, but I'm going to read a little bit out of his statement that he released regarding the results of the election. And I will be doing this sober, by the way, so I can stay on topic. So this was put out today by Senator Bernie Sanders. It says, Sanders' statement on the results of the 2024 presidential election. It should come as no great surprise that a Democratic Party which has abandoned working class people would find that the working class has abandoned them. First, it was the white working class, and now it is the Latino and black workers as well. While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they're right. Today, while the very rich are doing phenomenally well, 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and we have more income and wealth inequality than ever before. Unbelievably real inflation accounted for weekly wages for the average American worker are actually lower now than they were 50 years ago. And he goes on to talk about how life should be changing. But there is one more thing I want to I want to bring up in this statement, and I think it's a huge reason why Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party lost the election this year. He says, "Today, despite strong opposition from a majority of Americans, we continue to spend billions of dollars funding the extremist Netanyahu's government's all-out war against the Palestinian people, which has led to the horrific humanitarian disaster of mass malnutrition and starvation of thousands of children." And I encourage everybody to read the whole statement, but those are the two main things I wanted to pull out of that. And I think he's spot on. I think that, now I'll get into my points as to why I voted against them, but I think that's really at the core of it, if I'm being completely honest. The machine overextended itself, and I think that was a byproduct of COVID. Completely abandoned their voter base, and they lost big time. One more statistic I'd like to bring up right now is where the votes are at. And I was going to get into voting demographics right now, but we're not at 100%. And I want to get to as close to 100% as humanly possible of vote counting. And we're not going to get to that till maybe probably next week at some point. But as it stands right now, Donald Trump got 295 electoral votes as opposed to Kamala Harris's 226. But in my opinion, more important than that, he won just shy of 73 million votes, and Kamala Harris got just shy, like a hair shy, of 68. So you have basically 73 million votes going against 68. And anybody watching this can go ahead and fact check me. The Republican Party has not won the popular vote since George Bush's re-election in 2004. And he was obviously, understandably so, campaigning off of, the 9/11 terror attacks that happened and the initial invasion of Iraq. Because at that time, they were still peddling the whole weapons of mass destruction and we're going to go get them and all that, this, and the other. And I believe it was at least 15 years before that the Republicans had won the popular vote. So that's just important to note, right? And that was the big talking point from the left in 2016 when Trump had won the election but lost the popular vote. They were like, well, she won the popular vote. This is nonsense. Da, 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 da. So I just think it's interesting. Before I start getting into my points, I just, for those of you who saw my Instagram story today, I intentionally stayed away from saying how I feel about the election results. I am happy that Donald Trump won, but I'm not happy how upset the left is right now. And I'm not happy with how upset my liberal friends are. Just because it does with my own friends, I don't like seeing my friends upset because, they're my friends. Even the hyper left people that I thought were my friends that have now shown me that they're not. My following count on both the Instagram for the pod and my personal has gone down. I got removed from group chats, and it's some certain people aren't texting me back, and that's fine. It is what it is. That's their own decision. I'm not going to go beg for somebody's attention. But I don't take joy. I really want to put that out front. I don't take joy. Like, I know it's easy and it's very clickbaity and it's very fun to like, oh, these liberals got squashed, or oh, these leftists they got what they deserved, and da da da. It's like, okay. It can be fun to do for a little bit. And don't get me wrong, when I saw Trump getting just winning last night, I was watching the Patrick Bet-David live stream. I was happy. I'm going to be honest. Because I so thoroughly hate the Democratic Party. And I hate their machine. I have more than a few talking points I'd like to get into tonight. And I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that's watching right now. I mean, I've got my phone up and we've got 9 people. So to all 9 people, feel free to drop in the chat. What's up, Cardo? 10 people. All right. So thank you guys all for watching. What's up, everybody? Cardo's good to see you. Everybody else, if we have any audio issues, any video issues, feel free to drop it in the chat. And like I said, I'll be periodically watching this so that I can respond to things as they come up. I'll do that probably at the end of every section. And yeah, thank you all for being here. This is 11 o'clock at night and I've got 10 people. This is fucking sick. Thank you guys. So all right. I want to start. I have my policy issues I want to bring up, and I have my actual but the policies are social issues. But one thing I do want to start with, because I'm seeing this a lot, and I'm not exactly surprised by it, but I want to make this completely fucking clear. In my opinion, by and large, the race and gender of Kamala Harris did not play a role in her losing the election. And the reason I say that is, well, first of all, to assume that, because I had this conversation on a live podcast on Monday, and for anyone who watched that live podcast, they can tell by the look on my face I don't love how that went, at least for the political part of it. Comedy part of it was fucking amazing. The political part of it is not great. And I heard this point get brought up on that podcast, and I've heard it throughout the day today, and I'm sure it's going to continue. And I understand it on a surface level, but I genuinely do not believe that because Kamala Harris Kamala Harris is a black woman, that she is the reason that is the reason she lost the election. Because that logic, at least to me, the way that logic follows is that the majority of Americans, are racist. And the majority of Americans are sexist. I don't believe that. And for people that are listening that do believe that, I would like to see evidence. I would like to see hard evidence of that. Of the majority of Americans. Am I saying that there are 0 people that voted against Kamala Harris because she's black and female? No, of course those people exist. For the same reason that people voted for Kamala Harris, because she's black and because she's a woman. Right? Racism goes both ways. So it exists on both sides. And I'm acknowledging that. But by and large, Americans are not racist. By and large, Americans are not hateful. I firmly believe that. No matter what the corporate media wants you to believe, Americans are not hateful. Americans are not racist. And we'll get to the corporate media here in a little bit. But I just don't think that logic follows. And even if it, how do I put this? What an ugly way to look at the world anyway. Well, specifically America. And I understand why some people would feel that way. I really do. But to just be set in stone in that is, I think, very ugly, in my opinion. I would also say that she lost, by and large, because of the Democratic Party. Kamala Harris could have been anybody else. I think there are very few people they could have put up that would have beaten Trump. I think Michelle Obama is one of them. And quite frankly, I'm shocked they didn't put up Michelle Obama because she's just way more, she's way better at politicking than Kamala Harris is. And she's a lot more likable. And I think she would have handled herself a lot better. I think she would have been a more impressive candidate, even though she has quantifiably less qualifications than she does, which is a low bar anyway. But I'm shocked they didn't run Michelle Obama. I'm shocked they didn't run Gavin Newsom. I'm shocked they didn't try bribing Bernie Sanders into it. Who knows? But it was the Democratic Party that lost this race. Kamala Harris did not do a whole lot to help herself, but she only had 109 days to run this AstroTurf fake campaign, which took full advantage of their constituents that will follow the left pretty much off a cliff, which they clearly did if you look at everything we just talked about over the last 15 minutes. And I take no pride. I don't revel in that. But I think Michelle Obama would have done a bit better. Certainly in the debates, at least, I believe. But it was the Democratic Party that lost this for Kamala Harris. It wasn't just her. I wouldn't even say she's the biggest reason. I watched her concession speech today, and that seemed to be the most relieved I've ever seen her, the most relaxed I've ever seen her. Do with that information as you will. I just wanted to kind of throw that in as a note. Yeah. So let's get into my points here. Let me see if there's anything in the chat, and I will bring up my first thing. Hey, Toby, what's up, buddy? Yeah, sorry we started late, but what's up, buddy? Hope you and your chick are watching, and I hope you guys enjoy this. And quite frankly, this goes to all my other Republican friends, I hope there's things you guys disagree with me on, because, disagreeing's fun. All right, so let's get into our first point. So I chiefly voted against the Democratic Party. I want to make that super clear. I would have voted against the Democratic Party regardless of who the candidate was, because the party itself has become infected. They are so corrupt and they are so evil that they're unrecognizable from what they were 20 years ago, let alone from like the Kennedy days. So the top three reasons, right? And these are all things that stemmed out of the Trump administration the first time. So everything bad about Donald Trump's presidency from 2016 to 2020, everything bad about that, the Democratic Party did worse. And the three examples I want to highlight here are COVID, foreign policy, and inflation/government spending. And a lot of these topics we're going to go over tonight, and ones I haven't even brought up yet, they're going to kind of weave in and out of each other, because none of this happens in a vacuum, right? Like, you don't have proxy wars without inflation, and then you don't have COVID without censorship, and then you don't have censorship without the proxy wars, and they all ebb and flow together. So if I repeat myself, it's just for adding context, or if it's the main point anyway. So I just want to kind of make that clear. But so let's start with COVID. So this is actually one of the issues that I have with Donald Trump as a president. So when Donald Trump says, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? What he really means is 5 years ago. And the reason I say that is because he pretty much took every bad, he made pretty much every wrong decision with COVID as he probably could have, without slipping straight into tyranny, just hard tyranny, right? So let's go back to 2020, right? So it's March of 2020. They shut down. They do the travel bans on Europe. They started shutting down borders. They start stopping, or at least severely slowing down supply lines and trade routes. And then the U.S. government tells you that because of a respiratory disease, you are not allowed to go to work. Worse than that, they told you, the American people, and I'm very blessed, I just want to say this right now, I'm very blessed that I know a lot of people from different walks of life. Artists, blue-collar workers, I know people that have PhDs, I know dudes that have felonies, and I know that a bunch of different people are going to watch this. But at the end of the day, we're all American. And they told you, based off what life path professionally you decided to take, whether or not you were essential. Strictly un-American. And that was under Donald Trump. Let's make that crystal fucking clear. So not only do they tell you whether or not you're essential, they tell you whether or not you can have your friends and family in your personal dwelling, whether you're owning or renting, whatever. Your private space, they tell you what you can do with it. In certain states, I believe it was Minnesota, because that's where Tim Walz was from. I don't want to make a complete ass out of myself. So, Governor Tim, Minnesota. Okay. There were some states like Minnesota that their state government set up this hotline where you thought if somebody was spreading COVID, knowingly or unknowingly, you could report them and they would send law enforcement. People weren't allowed to hold funerals, birthday parties, graduations, military services. When my unit came back fully from deployment, they were allowed to greet their families, but it was a quick in and out. From what I understand, there was no real ceremony. There was no real hoop and hurrah. It was just, hey, get off the bus, get the fuck home. That was under Donald Trump, right? So not only do they do that, he hires Anthony Fauci, who already has a very, let's be conservative and say checkered past with Big Pharma, the United States government, so on and so forth. And I have it in my personal library. I need to read it, but I know the highlights of The Real Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy. And if half of that is true, if half of that is false, Robert F. Kennedy would be getting sued for libel and slander and defamation. But he hasn't been. So what does that tell you? Very ugly things, going from gain-of-function research to AIDS research to cancer research, whole bunch of things that Anthony Fauci was involved in. But anyway. So we have an unelected, basically politician, and Anthony Fauci, advising the president on whether or not you can go to work, whether or not you can live your daily life again. And just like everybody else, I'm not afraid to admit it, I was glued to the TV, right? I was glued to the TV, I was watching. And that's pretty much how we lived our lives for a few months during COVID in 2020. Then they decided to start printing off checks. So now what you're doing is basic supply and demand. You stopped the world's biggest economy, and you've printed a shit ton of money. What is that going to lead to? Okay. Then as this starts going on and things start circulating, information starts circulating, questions are being asked. Hey, so was it a bat in a wet market that like crossed pathogens or whatever with a pangolin or something? Or was it the Wuhan lab, the Wuhan coronavirus lab that had previously failed health inspections dating back to, I believe, 2012, that let this virus out, that we were funding gain-of-function research in, that created this virus, and due to lack of standards being kept, it leaked out. The lab leak theory. If you were to say that 4 years ago, like, because we're in November right now, if you were to say this 4 years ago, you would get a strike on your channel. You'd get your Twitter account removed, whether you're as big as Joe Rogan or you are just a little creator like me. I got election misinformation strikes on my channel. I still have a strike on my channel. Medical misinformation on my channel. And it's still there from like the beginning of 2022 or some shit. End of 21 going into 22. Just to put into context. Okay. So where did this virus come from? So at least in censorship, obviously, right? And then it's like, okay, then when you have, I believe it was called the Great Barrington Report, where basically where international scientists and doctors and professors came together to basically say, hey, we're not learning enough about COVID. We're not being told the truth. We shouldn't be like rushing into a vaccine right now. And the long story short of it is basically the narrative is bullshit. Not reported on, discredited by Big Pharma, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, Pfizer, all of that gets suppressed. And it's not heard from, right? But now, if you look at that, 99% of that document is true, A, and B, the lab leak theory is now considered the actual story of how COVID happened. Okay. So then, he's like, man, how far do you even want to go into this? Okay. So then, let's end it here. The vaccine, right? Because now we're getting into the Biden administration. They keep Anthony Fauci. They print off at least one more series. I think one or two more series, but definitely one series of checks. So they're pumping up inflation. They're keeping you locked down. Liberal celebrities are coming out telling you to stay in your homes, to care about one another, and like the vaccine. Oh, they lied to you about the vaccine. All of them, celebrities and the Democratic apparatus, right? They're all telling you that the virus or the vaccine will stop the spread of the virus, which we all knew was bullshit, right? So they're spreading that. And then when they're creating the virus, there are bills written that's protecting the pharmaceutical companies from getting sued against it protects them against being sued when vaccine injuries happen. This is all under the Biden administration. And then they force you to get the vaccine. I've had multiple people on this podcast that were forced to get it. Whether they said it on camera or not, they've told me. Most recent, a buddy of mine, Jason, if you're watching, what's up, buddy? We were in the same unit together, and he was able to get out of it due to a religious exemption, thank God. No pun intended. But at the time that I got the vaccine, when I was in the military, I didn't even know that was a thing. They didn't tell us. They were just like, get it now or get it later. You're going to get forced to, or you're going to lose your career. And without airing out all my business, I was already in some hot water. I'm still getting an honorable discharge and all that stuff. Like, nothing that bad happened. But like, my command did not like me. My peers did not like me. I was ostracized. I had some friends, but it was just wasn't a good spot. And part of that was my fault. But anyway, I digress. I just wanted to do my time and get out. And then you're telling me that I'm going to lose my benefits that I got from deploying, that I'm not going to get an honorable discharge, all because I don't get a vaccine? And there were just silly things that happened in the military where it was like, oh, you can't find your vaccine card? Guess you're getting another shot. They actually tried doing that. So then that's how you start breeding the distrust in the military members and so on and so forth. But people, you got told, I know there are people that's going to watch this podcast that you got told. And if you voted for Kamala Harris, I need you to remember this, man, or woman, or whatever you identify as. I'm not saying it disrespectfully, but everyone that I can cover, I need you to understand this. If you voted for Kamala Harris, either you or somebody had their livelihoods threatened because they didn't want to take this experimental vaccine, this experimental shot. But where's all that now? I thought this was the pandemic to end all pandemics. Like, I thought this was like the big thing. Where is all that now? Okay. So COVID, they did worse. Foreign policy. I mean, what the fuck? We have two proxy wars going on right now that we don't need to be involved in. Now, what I will say, like I said just now, against Donald Trump, I don't like the way Donald Trump handles Israel. Actually, I'm going to check my chat real quick, see if there's anybody watching that has any questions or has any comments, concerns, complaints. Okay, cool. All right, move on. Foreign policy. So under Donald Trump, and he's even said this lately, how in lockstep he is with Benjamin Netanyahu and the state of Israel. And that's been an American problem, an American government problem for years that I just don't fucking agree with. And if anyone has any interest, we can go into Israel on a different episode where it's basically like, okay, like Benjamin Netanyahu is part of the reason why we went to Iraq. He helped us. He helped our American government officials lie us into that war in Iraq and Afghanistan. He said that toppling Gaddafi would lead to peace in the region. I mean, and this is aside from everything that's going on right now. You know what I mean? But aside from the major issue, I'm not trying to downplay it. I just want to get through all of these. I just saw all my points. I'm like, oh, fuck, I have a lot. Aside from all of the main issues with Israel, I enjoyed Trump's foreign policy. And I was rewatching the podcast that I did on Monday, and I admitted to being wrong about something that I actually wasn't wrong about because the context itself didn't make any sense. So there was an 18-month period during Donald Trump's presidency where there were no combat deaths. Now, there were 64 combat deaths inside 4 years, but that's crazy. No deaths in 18 months and 64 deaths, or like 64, 84 deaths in 4 years. While there's a war on terror going on. Okay, I think that's a win. I don't like American soldiers dying, but if we're going to be at war and you've got 64 in 4 years, all right. One thing that I really enjoyed about Donald Trump's presidency that is underreported, even at the time that it happened, and it's never talked about now, and I'm shocked that the Trump administration didn't put this as part of their campaign either in 2020 or 2024. He got the leaders of North and South Korea to shake hands. Donald Trump crossed the DMZ into North Korea's borders. And A, just didn't get killed on sight. That's awesome. But B, shook hands with their leader. Say what you want about like all this nonsense where they're like, oh, he's a Russian agent, or he's like in bed, or he loves tyrants or whatever. The world is a very volatile place. Don't you want a president that's going to speak with leaders? Don't you want good and bad, right? Foreign leaders, friend or foe. Don't you want that? Or do you want what's been going on right now where Biden didn't speak to Putin for like close to 2 years of this Ukrainian war happening, hardly ever met with Zelensky in the beginning, and quite frankly, we'll get to this a little bit later, but sent Boris Johnson, a foreign leader, to go and squash the treaty negotiations between Russia and Ukraine? So when Biden is speaking with leaders, he's telling them to perpetuate war. Do you want that? Or do you want the guy that's trying to make peace with our enemies? Like on some real sense, right? These are all just questions I want people to really ask themselves. So he got the leader of North and South Korea to shake hands. And I think that's absolutely crazy. Then you get to the Abraham Accords. And I'm torn on the Abraham Accords because that's the closest we've ever gotten to peace in the Middle East. But it still treated Palestine and the West Bank, Gaza, West Bank, whatever you want to, that region, right? Treated them like the redheaded stepchild still. And I don't like that very much. But it's still the closest we've gotten to peace in the Middle East. So, and who knows what the fuck's going to happen with that now, to be completely frank. Anyway, so foreign policy. Trump says this a lot, and I really believe it. I don't believe the Ukrainian war would have happened under Trump. And just to give a brief history of why this is going on right now, we help stage a coup and an overthrow of their government in 2014, I believe, to install a more democratically friendly and democratically aligned government. And Putin's whole thing has been, ever since the Berlin Wall fell and ever since he's been in power, his whole thing is, hey, listen, man, I don't want NATO on my border. I think the big quote, I think from Bush Sr. was not an inch to the east, I believe. But what have we been doing? We've been expanding NATO through Europe against what we've told Russia. Like him or not, we told them one thing, we're doing something else. And then now it's gotten to a point where we had the capabilities of putting nuclear bombs on his border. And like, not for nothing. Look, I don't condone, like, I don't agree. Condone is like a place of authority, which is kind of weird. I don't agree with Vladimir Putin invading Russia. But at the same time, if there was a government in northern Mexico, or like a local government in northern Mexico, or a section of northern Mexico or southern Canada that suddenly became communist sympathizers, assuming we had a strong border, right? Became communist sympathizers or socialist or whatever sympathizers, and they had even the inkling of having nuclear capability on our border, do you really think we let that fly? We would turn that place into a fucking parking lot. Make no mistake about it. And I don't mean to go on a tangent, but Americans are so, because of our privilege of being safe, we become so detached from war that we don't know what it's like to be really threatened lately. Putin knows that threat. And credit where it's due, Israel knows that threat. So while I don't agree with him invading, I can't exactly blame him. But I think that's a direct result of the weakness that America displayed, that Joe Biden displayed on behalf of America during the Afghanistan pullout. And really, I could do a whole thing about how I don't like how Joe Biden's disrespected the military. But I want to get into like real, like as much tangible topics as I can. But I mean, 13 service members died during the Afghan pullout, and I don't fool myself. I don't say that under Donald Trump it necessarily would have been any better. I know Donald Trump probably would have taken more care with it, and there would have been maybe 5 deaths. That's still lives saved, of course, but it still would have been ugly. Make no mistake about it. It would have been ugly under any president because it's just a tricky thing. It's always been a tricky thing in the Middle East. You know, that's just how it is. Militaries come in, they get driven out. It happens. But because of how poor that Afghan pullout was handled, Putin saw his opening and he took it. Again, none of this happens in a vacuum. So I just want to make that clear again. And so that's how I feel about it. And then you start getting to the point where it's like, okay, well, the Hunter Biden laptop story that had, and that laptop may or may not have had information about the dealings that Hunter Biden was doing with the Ukrainian oil companies that Joe Biden was a part of. Like Joe Biden was referred to in a couple of emails as like the big man or whatever it was. I need to do more research into that to refresh my brain. But then you start to get into the censorship issue, you start getting into the election suppression issue and the election fraud, right? Because if the American public knew that if the American public knew that Joe Biden was doing deals in Ukraine like that, and then on top of all the like prostitution and like the hookers and the cocaine and all that, the crack stuff, I don't think they would have voted for Joe Biden in the way that they did, assuming that election was free and fair, you know, but assume that it was. And then it leads to like the Ukrainian war, you know what I mean? So anyway. All right. I'm not trying to go down the fucking conspiracy tangent. So yeah, Ukrainian war. I think that's all I want to talk about the Ukrainian war for now. I think. It's just foreign policy has just got so much worse under Biden when it came to that. And then you look at the Gaza Israel issue, and this is what I referred to with the Bernie Sanders statement. I think something like 70-80% of the left of the Democratic Party, they don't want the war in Gaza, but yet they perpetuate it. Yeah, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? Like, if you... Yeah, I don't even have like a good enough analogy to compare to that. It's like funding a war when your voting base tells you, "Hey, I don't want to be a part of this war," especially when the war is affecting the inflation rate and is affecting the economy of the home country directly. And they're saying, "Hey, because support for Ukraine dropped quick. They never had support for fucking Israel and against Palestine." So it's like, yeah, hey, if you keep funding this war, I'm not going to fucking support you. Well, look what happened. Obviously. And I really want to harp on this point because that's not a Kamala Harris thing. That's a Democratic Party apparatus thing. That goes bigger than Joe Biden. Now, granted, Kamala Harris definitely shot herself in the foot when she went on The View and said that she was a part of every major decision-making process and she co-signed everything that Biden did and she would change nothing about the administration. Definitely shot herself in the foot there. But is there not a more crazy analogy of how to lose an election? Hey, party I'm a part of. Stop funding this war. Stop killing innocent civilians or I will not vote for you. Hey, constituency. Go fuck yourself. I'm voting Trump or I'm not voting at all. Because I think not voting is a vote, but that's a whole other conversation. That's the libertarian in me. I don't understand how that gets lost on people. It really bothers me. Okay, let's move away from foreign policy. Let's check the chat really quick. Let's see if there's anything that I've missed, all right, maintaining at 5 watchers. I fucking love it. All right, what's up, everybody? Oh, shit, 9 people. Fuck yeah, what's up, Hey, for anyone who's not, familiar with the podcast, how's it going? Please please subscribe. It really does help a lot. I'm a small level creator. I really want to do this professionally, whether it's podcast and a comedian. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any tech issues on my end, if you have any audio, video issues, please let me know and I will fix them. We just got done talking about foreign policy. So let's go ahead. Actually, let's see here. Give me 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. I accidentally hit Siri. Whoopsies. Thank you all for watching. Let's see here. Just gotta send my buddy this link. I forgot to send it to him because I am a bad friend. Sorry, Josh. There you go, buddy. Love you. All right, so let's get into our next topic of the evening. All right, so inflation and government spending. And a lot of that really goes into what we just talked about with the foreign policy thing. The deficit grew. We did have the deficit grow and the debt grow a lot under Trump. You can't refuse that, even before you get into the COVID thing, right? Excuse me. But at least some of that debt that was growing was helping rebuild the military, because holy Lord, did Obama destroy it. But that was a lot of it, right? But then, this is my knock on Trump. This is my knock on Donald Trump. I've already brought this up, but because we're talking about inflation and government spending, I'm going to bring it up again. He goes and shuts down the world economy. People, I guess I really want to harp on COVID too, because Americans have a bad attention span, and I get it. I'm the same fucking way. But COVID was only 4 years ago. That's not that long. They shut down the world's biggest economy and told you couldn't go to work unless you were essential. They stopped making stuff and printed money. What the fuck did you expect was going to happen? Inflation. That would have fallen on Trump if you got a second term, or Biden. That part doesn't matter. But the reason I really want to pin a lot of this on the Biden administration, because they took that inflation and fucking made it worse with these 2 proxy wars. I think right now, as of fucking today, or at least October, we're at 190 billion dollars sent to Ukraine. And listen, the reason why I made that comment about Bernie Sanders in the beginning is I never really thought that America could have a universal healthcare system, because I'm still ignorant to how the healthcare system really works on a deep level. But I thought it was a money issue. Could you imagine? Forget 180 billion. All right, let's take fucking half of that. Could you imagine if $90 billion was injected into this country's healthcare system? Or was injected into the public education system through K through 12, not even college, just K through 12? Could you fucking imagine what that would do if that got injected into the homeless situation? I just don't fucking buy it, man. We don't have money for this shit. Well, now we don't, right? Because it all got printed away. But 5 years ago we did, apparently. I don't know. That's just something to think about. That's all I really have to say about government spending right now. All right, this is the fun one. This is the one that probably lost me some friends, lost me some supporters, and this is the one that if I get a strike on my channel, this is probably going to be the one. So let's buckle the fuck up, ladies and gentlemen. Let's buckle the fuck up. All right. The ideologies of the Democratic Party. They've become the party of war, become the party of censorship. They've become the party that is embedded with big pharma in a way we have never seen before. I do not agree with the transgender movement when it comes to children. I'm going to say that one more time. I do not agree with the transgender movement when it comes to children. The coup they staged on Joe Biden, the way they've radicalized abortion, and then the installation of Kamala Harris. Where do you even start? All right. So the war party thing we've already gone over, so I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to see if I've made any more notes for myself, but I think really that's just, yeah. And then with the APAC stuff, and I can get into APAC later if we have time. We'll see what time it is. But, you know, we've gotten into the war party stuff. We've gotten into censorship. I think something that people really forgot about, but you need to look into more is the Twitter files. With Matt Taibbi blowing all that up and then finding out that, you know, about the election suppression or the suppression of information when it came to the Hunter Biden laptop stuff, the fact that Zuckerberg came out recently and just admitted that, you know, not only just on Joe Rogan, but admitted in that press release that, you know, they basically helped the left win that election and they won't be affording them their help this go around. You know, stuff like that. I think the acquisition, holy cow, it's almost midnight. The acquisition of Twitter is such a huge game-changing thing for this election. God bless Elon Musk for doing that. For all of his faults, God bless him. So if any other thoughts come to mind, or if any of you guys have any thoughts about censorship, let me know and I'll bring that up. Big Pharma, same thing. Basically the COVID jab stuff. Kind of already went into that. All right. Here's the big one. The transgender movement when it comes to kids. So, you know, whether it's the men and women's locker room transgender stuff or the boys playing in girls' sports, part of the transgender stuff. An interesting thing that I found out today. So if you all remember during the Olympics, there was that person that was accused of being a transgender. But even like when I looked it up in real time, it came out as like, oh, they had this like medical thing where like technically a woman, but they had like the chromosome fuck up or whatever, like sex attributes. No, it was a dude. It was a fucking dude. Dude had a micro penis. Testicles were inside their body. Went through male puberty. That was a dude boxer. So, you know. Anyway. So all of that stuff is a bridge too far for Americans. You know what I mean? Like the fact that, and Rogan was talking about this years and years and years ago with the whole Fallon Fox thing in the UFC. Like, in what universe are you going to be allowing grown men to compete with women? Like, I don't understand why that's a thing. And then I know a lot of, you know, whether it's my chick or just like women in my life I've seen them talk about this on social media, or they just brought this up, where it's like women, biological women, are getting replaced by transgender women in all these competing categories. And if I was a woman, I'd be fucking pissed too. And quite frankly, when it came to the whole like men can get pregnant thing that the left was pushing, and like men can have periods and the men's rooms have fucking tampons, like we'll get to the transgender stuff with the kids here in a second, but I want to remind all you guys some of the insanity that the left was pushing that pushed away liberal voters, like classical liberal voters and independents. I really want to remind you guys of all this. Men can get pregnant, men can have periods, tampons in men's restrooms. Like, what fucking mad world are we living in right now? Like, and the fact that they altered the definition of like the gender dysphoria, or like they altered the name for it and altered the definition. Oh, they also changed, this reminds me, talk about censorship, they also changed the definition of vaccine. That's kind of crazy. Anyway, so they're pushing all these narratives and it's just a bridge too far. Like, look, Americans by and large are not bigots. All right. They are not bigots. They support gay marriage. And I think again, generally speaking, at its worst, people just don't give a fuck if you're transgender or not. Transgender, or you have like different pronouns and non-binary stuff, like they don't care. And now what I'm about to say is more of a Republican thought process, which I agree with, but it's just like when you start pushing it upon people to make them agree with you. Like, make no mistake, and I'm not afraid to say this, gender dysphoria is a mental illness by definition. In my, like, I can't step away from that. Does that make me like transgenders any less? Make me value them any less as people, or not use their own terms, not recognize or validate them? No, not at all. They are still human beings. I love them no less than anybody else. But it's the radicalized people in this group of the left that make you want to they're forcing you to believe that all this shit is reality. That men can get pregnant, that men can have periods, that men and women biologically are equal. I'm sorry, no, we're not. Like, I don't understand why this is so you have all this insanity. Just trying to rack my brain, make sure I didn't miss anything. I'm sure I did, because there's so fucking much of it. See if there's anything interesting in the chat. Okay. Ah, lost a viewer. Whoops. Well, hi to all 8 of you. And if you disagree with me, please feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll check it when I finish this subject. So you have all of this insanity, and then on top of it, the last part I wanted to say about the men getting pregnant thing, it's just another thing taken away from women, because that's like the special thing about women. That's the special thing about women, is you people, biological women, you people can create humans. That's crazy. Like, do I ever want to get pregnant? Like, if I had the option to like swap with a woman, like be a real woman, whatever, no, fuck that. Sorry. But like, that doesn't devalue how fucking crazy it is that you can have children and make and create and birth life. That's crazy. So for men to come in and try to take that away from you, take away your ability to compete. Why did so many women vote for Trump? I don't know, dude. Maybe because the party of joy and peace and love and inclusion forgot to include real women. The left is not a party. The Democratic Party is not a party for everybody right now. They say they are, but they aren't. They are only a party for those who agree with them. Sorry. And the far right has that issue too, but it's just so much more predominant on the left. I don't know, man. Okay, so then you have all of that. And then You want because again, you're trying to win a fucking election, right? You're trying to run a good administration and fucking win an election. So then you want Americans to believe that it is okay. Okay, let's not even get there first. You want Americans to believe that children can decide their own gender. I'm going to say it one more time. You want Americans to believe that children can decide their own gender. I don't know how you guys lost votes. I don't get it. That's a swing and a hit for me. I'm trying not to get animated about this stuff because I really don't want to be as sound as humanly possible. But I mean, holy cow, some of this subject matter. So not only do you want Americans to believe that children can choose their own gender and swap their gender, and you have all the crazy stuff where it's like identify as like a frog or a cat or a moose or whatever. I'm not going to cover that because that's such a small subsect of the population. It's like, negligible. You know what I mean? But they really wanted you to believe, and some of them still do, they want you to believe that children can pick their own gender. And furthermore, there are laws in states in this country right now still, and I pray to God that somehow they get removed, that if you don't validate, if you don't affirm your child's choice, they could be taken away from you by Child Protective Services. You want, because it's not even mental illness, it's child fantasy. You want you want parents to stop parenting? First of all, the state should never tell you how to raise your child, outside of abuse, obviously, which this falls into abuse, and we'll get there in a second. But the fact they want you to stop parenting your kids and let them fucking be where they want to be at like the age of 3 to 17, go fuck yourself, dude. I gotta be honest, go fuck yourself. That's insane. That's crazy talk. So, and you have like in California, they have that thing where they can just like run away to the state and fucking, go into the system because that's so great, right? And they get taken away from their parents and just it's absolutely insane. So then on top of that, aside from affirming genders, then they start saying stuff like gender's a made-up construct and sex and gender aren't the same and blah, blah, blah. That's a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of hooey anyway. But if your kid decides that they are the other gender, they can go to a doctor with or without parental consent and get puberty blockers and hormone therapy and potentially sex change therapy. I believe the sex change thing has to happen with parental consent. But if you're a parent, I'm not a parent, by the way. I don't have kids. But if you're a parent and you mutilate your child, you're not a good parent. Let's put it that way. I can say something really inflammatory, but I'm just going to say something real basic. You're not a good parent. And you probably shouldn't be one. It just blows my mind. So then, and they want all the Americans to believe, again, because you're trying to win an election, they want Americans to be okay and agree with all this shit. Like, again, I'm cool with grown adults making adult decisions. Don't bring kids into this. And why do you want kids, right? Why do you want the kids in on this? And this applies to the drag queen shows or the drag shows and the gay pride parades where they're prancing around fucking half naked. Why do you want kids there? I'm not even going to say this is a good or a bad thing. But why do you want kids there? I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to grab a hat because my head's kind of getting a little sweaty. I'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I'm back. Hopefully not too many of you ran away. Hopefully I didn't turn too many of you against me. All right, we got 8 people. All right, cool. All right, so what are we talking about? We're talking about the transgender stuff, right? Okay, so yeah, they want you... They want the American populace as a whole to agree with you, and they want, or with them, and they want the American populace to say that this stuff is okay when it's child abuse, and it's not okay. This is the same reason why we don't let children join the military, why we don't let children get tattoos, why we don't let children, I mean, you can't fucking drive till you're 16. You can't drink. You can't use fucking chewing tobacco or cigarettes until you're 21. Because the brain has not formed yet. You're making life-altering decisions as a child. So many of these children, and quite frankly, grown adults too, but so let's just say these people, right? So many of these people that are going through this surgery, that go through these puberty-blocking hormone therapies, that go through all these procedures, they will never have an orgasm. And can we just all be adults here? That's one of the best parts of being a human. Like, you're taking away one of life's great joys because you're affirming a mental illness. Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe that there are some people on this planet, and as far as I can tell, I think Ellen Page and now Elliot Page, I think that person is one of these examples where it's like, hey, no, going through these procedures, their body agreed with it. They also had the money to do it properly. But their body agreed with it and their life is better off right now. At least outside looking in, right? It's all fucking celebrity and it's all social media anyways and highlight reels, so who knows really. But, you know, there are people like that and I recognize that. I would just wager to bet that's not the rule. And again, it's child abuse and it's child mutilation. And the fact that, like, do we all also remember the MAPS movement? Remember that was a thing? Like, thank God the LGBTQ whatever community, by and large, there were some subsects that were kind of crazy, but by and large, that whole community was like, no, we don't like pedophiles, fuck you guys. So, you know, just saying. But anyway, so, and then what kills me is, like, so you're seeing a lot of this stuff and you're seeing a lot of people, especially today, now that Trump got elected and he's now the president-elect now, where it's like, oh, gay people should be scared, or gay people are scared. If you don't understand why I see this one a lot. If you don't understand why gay people are scared, you don't have gay friends. You just know gay people. I would love, because I have not found it. Please, I want somebody to show me evidence. Please, I want someone to show me evidence that gay marriage is under attack right now. Or that even it was under attack under Trump's first presidency. Gay marriage will not get repealed. It won't. Gay marriage is such a, like, key part of American society now. And I don't think that's refutable at all. Don't get me wrong. You do have homophobes and you do have, you know, people that yell faggot out in public and stuff like that, and like are prejudiced against gay people. Like, that exists, and in the same way that you have racists and all that stuff. But it's not the majority of Americans, and it's actually such a small population, because now it's at the point where everyone knows or is related to somebody that is gay. Everybody, I think, in America, every straight person in America cares about someone who is a homosexual. I don't think that's a stretch. I have gay people in my life that I care about. But just because I voted for Donald Trump, I know gay people that voted for Trump. So what? They're voting their own marriage away? Well, I mean, I guess they're in a shitty marriage. Yeah. Okay, I'm trying not to make jokes. Okay. But, like, what are they, self-hating gays? So then And then you could take that argument and take it so many different places that I'm not going to, but you see my point? Like, there is absolutely no evidence that gay marriage will be repealed in this country. And if it does, you will have a country in uproar. I know Christians, diehard, devout, evangelical Christians, that while they still believe in this, what the Bible says with the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman, they also love gay people. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. I would wager that 94, maybe even 96% of Americans, when polled accurately, do not want gay marriage to be repealed. And even then, I think I'm giving the homophobes a little bit too much percentage there. So, gay marriage is not going to get repealed, ladies and gentlemen. It's not going to fucking happen. All right. Trans movement with the kids. Yeah, it's just fucking child abuse, dude. So let's stick on that and let's go to social issues, right? And so this is a playbook out of the Obama administration. So if you remember when Obama was running for re-election, 10 people, what's up? All right. So when we got 10 people at 12 o'clock in the morning, let's fucking go. What? Like, that makes me happy. The audience is growing. This makes me very happy. So yeah, actually makes me really happy. I kind of derailed my train of thought. That makes me really happy. Thank you guys very much. 11 people watching. What the fuck? Let's go. That makes me so happy. All right. I didn't even check the chat. I just saw the number and got distracted. Let's see if there's anything about the transgender stuff before I move on to abortion. Because that's an easier topic. All right. Congrats on voting against what America needs. I sure hope they don't let you. America has spoken, chosen fascism. Okay, that's not true. Okay, congrats on voting against what America needs. Small business support. No, well, okay, that's not true. Okay, so Corey Griffith. I don't know what you're referring to when you say where is that a thing, you coward? But if you want to refer to what I said, I'll try to answer that. 12 people. Oh shit. Okay, so all right. So abortion. This is the one where I understand why people are upset, right? Now, the issue, though, is with Roe v. Wade, from the way I understand it, with Roe v. Wade getting overturned, even if Kamala Harris got into office, now that we have a government in which I believe the Republicans are expected to control the entire Congress, I'm not convinced it goes back to the federal level anyway. Now, Donald Trump and everyone around him has consistently said that they're not going to impose an abortion ban, and I believe them. And the reason I believe them is because of how much people are protesting the abortion bans in the states that have one. And full disclosure, if Donald Trump imposes a abortion ban, I will be among the first that says, hey, that's fucking bullshit. Because being absolute about anything is not good. No matter what issue it is, right? Absolutely positive or absolutely negative about something is not good, in my opinion. It's that quote from Anakin Skywalker, right? Only a Sith deals in absolutes. But I don't agree with that. And I also don't think that'll happen. I would take it a step further, and I would say that there needs to be a federal law that states that federal abortion bans are illegal. Completely banning abortion should be illegal. Because that's just un-American, right? To take away a choice. That being said, these these states that have like an abortion ban after 6 weeks or after 8 weeks, that's fucking ridiculous too. And I think that's something that really needs to, and I understand the surface level logic. And Trump claims that like the biggest, all the legal scholars, Democrats and Republicans, I forget who it was, but I don't think it was Trump, but somebody, I was watching a podcast and they were talking about how Ruth Bader Ginsburg even supported putting Roe v. Wade down to the states. I don't know if that's true or not. I need to read more about that. And whenever Trump started saying like we had the best of whatever, I started like, did we really? He's talking about absolutes. But I really, I feel for women that are in a state where there's a total abortion ban or there's like these early week abortion bans. That's not right. And that's really, but my issue, so I'm bringing up the policy thing is because they had 4 years of failure on like strict policy under the Biden administration. So now they switched to the social issues and the social issues failed. Clearly the social issues failed. So, and I think that shows in the popular vote. Because again, the last time the Republican president got elected with the popular vote was fucking Bush. Like my personal views on abortion, I'm not convinced that I would ever get one, or not get one, but like encourage someone that I was with to get one. You know what I mean? If it was like elective. Now, obviously, in the cases of, if there was pregnancy challenges or stuff like that, whether it's the early stuff, I forget what the actual name for it is, but it's where like the egg gets stuck in the fallopian tube and it grows there. Obviously, you need to abort that. That is considered an abortion to my knowledge. But then, when you have like the elective stuff, I start getting real fuzzy about, because it's like, well, you're not taking responsibility for your actions, but what are the economic circumstances, stuff like that. It's such a multifaceted, issue that like, that's probably one of the only issues that I look at that and I see it from pretty much the only side I don't see it from, just because I do not agree with it on a moral standpoint, is just using abortion as a form of birth control, and that's a right wing talking point. There's like all these women that use it as a form of birth control, and I think honestly, the amount of women that do that is a lot lower than the Republicans want you to think, and I think that number is. I wouldn't say it's negligible, but I just think they're blowing it out of proportion. Because again, I believe most Americans are good people. And I don't think that most women would say like accidentally get pregnant, wait for 6 months, then abort it. Like, I don't think that's a thing. I could be wrong, but I choose, I'll be honest, I choose not to believe that, just because to think there's a bunch of women just running around getting abortions because they want to, I don't, again, maybe I could get proven wrong, but it is, I don't know. I don't think that's the case, to be completely honest with you. And I think that's just a right wing talking point that gets blown out of proportion. Okay, so we're still stuck on the ideology part of it. Okay, so the coup on Joe Biden. So I'm going to check the chat really quick. Let's see what we got going on here. Dun, 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 dun. Why is this not loading? Oh, it was Obi-Wan. Yeah, sorry about that, brother. Okay. You should be able to abort your child at age 18. That's funny. All right. So... all right. Oh, and we dropped from 7 to 12. That's funny. Oh, well, shit happens. I knew that one's going to lose me some viewers. It is what it is. All right. So let's move on to the coup against Biden. So, okay. And this really just gets into the, like, it kind of dips itself into censorship, but then it really just, like, it's the apparatus lying to the American people, trying to gaslight them and convince them of something that is not real, right? I kind of touched on subjects like this already, but in a real honest manner, right? Is there anybody that believed after 2021 that Biden was in a healthy mental state? Now there isn't, but back then there were so many people from 2021 to that first debate between Trump and Biden in the re-election cycle, where it was like, oh, what were they saying? He's never been sharper. He's amazing in meetings. He's great behind closed doors. Like, there were so many different Democratic talking points where it's like, you're not just lying to me, you're gaslighting me into believing something that isn't true. We all watched it happen. And quite frankly, like, I say this a little bit I used to say this in my stand-up sets, but like, it's fucking elder abuse, dude. Like, it's so ugly. And Joe Biden is about as much to blame as the Obamas, as the Clintons. And they only really got Joe Biden because they wanted somebody to play along with the party's needs and the apparatus's desires. That could not be more clear. But they lied to the American people, saying that he was fit for duty. And then when Kamala Harris gets questioned about that along with Tim Walz, she basically had a nothing burger answer. But it literally took throwing Joe Biden in a debate against Donald Trump, having him stumble over his words. So, like, the 2024 Donald Trump was so much different than if that was 2016 Donald Trump, he would have roasted the shit out of him. But all he had to say was, I don't know what he just said, and I don't think he does either. Like, that is a quote that is going to live in time, because that was the downfall of the re-election for the Democratic Party. So yeah. So then it becomes completely obvious that Joe Biden cannot run for re-election. I'm not going to speak on what happened behind closed doors because nobody really knows. There's a lot of speculation on Obama's involvement, which I wouldn't be surprised, but whatever. So they replaced Joe Biden with Kamala Harris, and there's just this huge transfer. Well, not even transfer. So like a week before they removed Joe Biden, there was a lot of donor money that got held, and then they replace him, and it all just gets shoehorned to Kamala Harris, and all this money gets raised from the big donors and blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying that regular citizens didn't throw money into her to support it, but that was major donors for the most part, right? Big donors. And that's why you have a lot of people saying this, and I've said this from time to time, where it's like Kamala Harris's support is just astroturfed. It's not real. Like, you could have replaced her with any other politician and it would be real. Or it would be the same result, right? Plus or minus probably a 8% deficit or margin of error. But like, you basically stage a coup against a sitting president. You put somebody, and you pick like probably one of the worst presidential candidates or presidential hopefuls that this country's ever seen. Like, she ran in 2020, didn't even make it to Iowa when she had major donors behind her at that point anyway. She was getting major donations, but she couldn't even make it to the Iowa caucus in 2020. And this is going to piss a lot of people off, and I encourage you to go look this up. Out of Joe Biden's own mouth, Kamala Harris is a DEI hire. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Out of Joe Biden's own mouth. He says, so there's two speeches that he gives where he talks about this. The first one, he says, based on our importance and the values of diversity, equity, inclusion, we're going to pick a candidate, or I'm going to make it my mission to pick a vice president that will be the first black woman vice president. Picks Kamala Harris, and he has another speech where he affirms that. And I don't say that lightly, by the way, because I know how much that offends some people. And I'm not here to offend people. I promise you, I'm not here to offend people. I'm just expressing my views in the best articulate way that I can. I'm not here to offend anybody. I promise. I was kind of saving this for the end, but I pride myself on the fact that even though I have my views, I love sitting down with everybody. I love talking with everybody. I've had people on this podcast that are far right, far left, in the middle, and we always have a good time. Even when the debates get heated, even when we don't talk about politics, we just talk about mutual interests. I'm not trying to offend anybody. And I understand how using the term diversity, equity, and inclusion can really offend people, but I'm not trying to. But out of Joe Biden's own mouth, making her the vice president based off of her gender and the color of her skin, like her ethnicity and her race, like that's not, you're devaluing her as a person, because it's like, okay, even if she doesn't have the best or like the most stacked record to be a vice president or to be a president, but even if she doesn't have the most stacked record, don't you want to like put that person in the best light possible? Like if you're having a running mate, don't you want to elevate them as much as humanly possible so that they elevate you and it becomes this symbiotic relationship, right? This partnership. I mean, that's just what my brain goes to. But Joe Biden didn't do that. He picked her based upon genetics. And if that doesn't bother people, I don't know why. Like I was having this conversation, who was I talking about this with? It's late at night. I forget who I was talking about this with. But I'm doing casadas this Friday and Saturday. Let's say it goes well. And I'm doing my damnedest to make sure it goes well. And I get asked to go back there. I want to get rebooked at that club because I'm funny and the material is good. I don't want to get booked at that club again because my last name is Vargas. Because I have a Mexican last name. You know what I mean? It devalues the person when you only pick them for something because of things they can't control. Meaning their gender and the color of their skin. Or their sexuality. That goes into it as well, I suppose. But just on a moral thing, I understand the importance, or not the importance, but I understand the thought process of why DEI is a thing. But it's like the opposite of the Midas touch. It's like ruining everything it touches. Like, look at fucking Disney right now. That company is hemorrhaging money because they keep forcing things on people's throats that they don't want. And it's just a really weird coincidence that every time that DEI is blatant in a project, the project is just not good. Like, it's not written well, it's not acted well. It's just a whole thing. That's a whole other subject. Anyway. So Kamala Harris gets installed by the Democratic Party. All this donor money goes over to her. And she's off on the campaign trail. And they tried very briefly doing this 2020 strategy that they did with Biden. Because at least in 2020, when they hid Joe Biden, it was like, oh, it's a pandemic. Which, like, you know, I give them that because it's like, I get it, right? But you can't do that anymore. She's doing these short form interviews. Like, she did that, like, 25-minute interview, I believe, on MSNBC or CBS with Tim Walz. So she really only spoke for about 12 minutes of that because it was a partnership thing and the answering time to answer questions, so on and so forth. But, like, the issue that you have right now in American politics that the Democratic Party did not adjust to is, so back in the day, not even back 30 years ago, before the internet and certainly before social media, you had your candidate and they basically had like their speech, right? Their big speech that's going to win over voters, let voters know who they are as a person, display their character traits, all that kind of stuff. And they went around the country campaigning with that speech. You didn't have people recording that speech and putting it on the internet. You didn't have people sharing the speeches, whatever. And they had the same controlled, tested talking points that they knew would set the candidate up for the best possible scenario, right? You can't do that anymore. We have the internet. And compounding on the internet, you have long-form podcasts, right? And you had multiple people on the right going out and do podcasts, namely Vivek Ramaswamy, right? And obviously now Trump. Like that fucking Rogan interview across all platforms like YouTube, Spotify, Twitter, or X, I guess. That's going to crack 150 million views. I don't think that's a stretch. It's well over 100 million now. So you have a party that's not adjusting to the times, where people want authenticity and they want to see you be a real human being. And they just didn't do that with Kamala. They put her on the Call Her Daddy podcast, and it was like 45 minutes And the podcast host is like, I'll use these comics as an example, or as a prop. The podcast host, Alex Cooper, is literally just sitting there with cards going like this. Predetermined, definitely vetted questions. You're not getting a good sense of Kamala. And I think she did all right on Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharp. There wasn't a whole lot out of that was super memorable. But it wasn't a bad interview, I would say. But there were parts of it where I was like, yes, like this is what your voter base wants. This is what people wanted to see. I'm not a Kamala Harris supporter, but I would like to know who the fuck she is as a person. Like, genuinely, I would like to know who that person was. If you are the person getting picked by one of two of the parties, I want to know who you are. Because honestly, if he didn't get recruited into Trump's camp, I was probably going to vote RFK. Because I didn't want either of these picks between Biden and Trump at the time. Anyway. Okay, so she's not doing the long form interviews, and she's not, like, her team is just not running a great campaign when it comes to showing people who is Kamala Harris. They really just, like, she was like the villain of the week, if put in, like, superhero TV show terms. She was just like the person of the week. There was nothing that made her stand out aside of her gender and the color of her skin that made her stand out compared to any other politician they could have put up. And she was not great under pressure. She wasn't great at rallies. And I think a lot of her voter base was strictly disappointed. Very, very disappointed. And aside from all the policy issues, just the way that they're touted out Kamala Harris, I don't blame them. I really can't blame them for being disappointed. It's like, that's the best you got? I don't know. All right. So, man, this is a long fucking conversation with myself, isn't it? All right. Oh, we still got 7 people. What's up, everybody? Oh, we're back up to 10. Hello. We got, who else is in here? We are the empty. What's up, dog? Your music's fucking amazing. Love you, buddy. Glad you're here. Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard fucking destroyed her ass. Hey, everyone that's watching, if you haven't already, subscribe. Please subscribe, like the episode. Fucking 10 people at 12:30 in the morning. I know my audience. You're like me. You're night owls. What the fuck is up, everybody? Oh, this is fucking great. All right. Okay, so the continuous attacks on Trump. So, over the last 8 to 10 years, right? Let's say 8 years, it's 2020. Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to name them off because I don't have time to go into all of them, but I'm just going to name them off and encompass why they're bad, right? So, because this is taking a lot longer than I expected it to. So, but maybe I shouldn't have started an hour late. So, but that's also my fault. Life just happens and you got to take care of things. All right. He's a Russian agent installed by Vladimir Putin. Bullshit. He's the next Hitler. Bullshit. The 34 felonies from the Stormy Daniels thing, where there was like bookkeeping issues with how he because I remember it was like what started that whole Stormy Daniels thing and like him going to court over the bookkeeping stuff was like all the checks he had written weren't kept properly, and then he had I remember there was an accusation that he had valued his properties wrong or some shit. We're like, first of all, what millionaire guy doesn't do that? A, and B, that's the best you got on him. So, and okay. We all know who Donald Trump is. He's been the most famous guy for decades. We're surprised that he cheated on his wife with a porn star and paid her off to shut up about it. It would have been one thing if he extorted her, or if he beat the shit out of her, or something that was hey, either you shut up about this or something bad happens to you. He just paid her off. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm not saying that's not morally reprehensible behavior. I'm not convinced it should be illegal. That's all I'm saying. Sorry. There are a lot of politicians that have done a lot worse things. Just saying. The false rape accusations, that one is weird because from what I understand, I think her name is E. Jean Carroll or something like that, or I forget what her name actually is, but she accused him of like groping her or like raping her in like in a dressing room or something like that. I could be totally wrong on that, but this is all recollection memory. But what I do know is he was never found guilty of rape, but he did get found liable for sexual assault, and he paid her out $5 million. So that tells me one of two things. Either he did something very wrong, which I don't agree with. Rape is bad. Sexual assault is bad. I just want to get that out in the open. Just out in the fucking open. I do not agree with any of that. So either he did that and he paid her off to get out of it, or he didn't do that, took the hit, realized that it really wouldn't hurt him, paid her off anyway, and left. Who the fuck knows truly? And then the Charleston, the good people on both sides. And from his own mouth, that's what flipped Rogan. When Obama came out and retorted that lie that he said there were both people on good sides, referring to the white nationalists, the neo-Nazis. He literally said that he condemns white supremacy in that speech about Charleston. But the same people that believe that he said that he condoned white supremacy are the same people that said are the same people that believe that Tulsi Gabbard's a fucking Russian agent. So what are you going to do? Okay. So and then the assassination attempt. That was the big one for a lot of people. Not just because he got shot or the Secret Service allowed that to happen, but it's just like when you start asking questions, the weirder it gets. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, why was that allowed to happen in the first place? This person was seen casing the area for an hour with a backpack, with a rifle. He was able to get on a roof 140 yards or something like that away from the president. And the answer as to why they didn't have coverage on the roof was because it was slanted and they could slide off. These are Secret Service sniper teams. What the fuck are you talking about? And that was from the Secret Service director. Excuse me. The fact that assassination attempt happened on a Saturday and the country didn't wake up Sunday morning to Secret Service director resigns in disgrace is still mind-boggling to me, right? So there's that. So how did he get that close to the president? Why was he allowed to get shots off when people were yelling, he's got a gun, he's got a gun? And then after the assassination attempt, well, first of all, how piss poor were his fucking security team in getting him out of there? Like, I get that Trump wanted to make a statement, like physically, right? By putting it, like, let me get my shoes on, and then, like, pumping his fist in the air. It made for a fucking iconic moment. I'll give him that. And iconic pictures came out of that. But the Secret Service is not fucking concerned with iconic images or iconic moments. They're concerned with getting him up and getting the fuck out of there so he won't die. Like, the fact that shooter was stupid enough to aim for the head, which it's a miracle that he missed anyway. We've all seen the graphs, or the diagrams of him turning his head and the bullet goes by. But the fact that shooter just didn't dump a couple rounds into his chest, I just call that stupidity. And Trump is lucky that didn't happen. Anyway, so following the assassination attempt, how has there been no hearings about this, no investigations about this? And quite frankly, the best answer we've gotten is from J.D. Vance, where he's like, I don't know, but I want to get it started. Why is it I want to get it started thing? This is a problem that falls on the left, being that they have the sitting president. All they did is they come out and said, or I'll get to that in a second, actually. So it falls on the sitting president because they didn't do enough investigation of their political opponent getting fucking shot at. And then it falls on the Trump campaign for not running with that, making that one of the front headlines of their campaign. Like, that's what convinced me that Trump's just running a shitty campaign anyway. He got fucking shot at, dude. There's pictures of blood running down his face. Why is that not in the front? Okay, anyway. So then you have... So no, I'll stay on that point, actually. Because with the sitting president being, the Democratic Party, Like, the Democratic Party gets so up in arms about inflammatory statements, and they get so up in arms about, inciting violence. You literally have been calling this guy a Russian agent and the new Hitler, and now for 8 years, and now a threat to democracy. So let's just say it's not a grand conspiracy, and it is a lone wolf that wants to go take out President Trump, or former President Trump at the time. Well, then who radicalized him? Was it MAGA? The guys that suck Trump's dick? That glaze him? Or was it the party that controls most of the major news stations that kept saying for 8 years that Donald Trump is Hitler and that he's a Russian agent, and now in this election cycle, he's a threat to democracy? This country will fall under Trump. Who radicalized him? Am I crazy? Am I crazy? It just seems so clear to me. Like, you can't... Like, I'm going to steal a quote from Dave Smith, and I'm going to do that I've probably already done that a couple of times, and I'm going to do it again in this podcast. That dude's fucking smart as shit. You don't get to wish Hitler a speedy recovery. Either he's Hitler or he's not. Choose. You don't have to call him a Nazi to say he's not a good candidate, to say that he's not a good president. You just don't. But of course they felt like they had to because he was beating them at their own game. So what the fuck are you going to do? Okay. So then, following the assassination attempt, there's no investigations. There's no comments on it from either side of the aisle. There's stuff coming out, so no statements about it, no investigation. They can't get into his cell phone for some reason. He has no social media footprint. What 23, 24, however old he was, has no social media. Okay. Then they cremate his body 10 days later. He's found to be in a bunch of BlackRock videos 2 years ago. And then when they GPS tracked his phone 6 months prior, he was going to a building very close to a FBI site, I believe in Washington. I'm not even like saying any of this is real. I'm just like, if these are so easy to swat down, why aren't they on both sides? If you really believe, and this just goes back to the whole idea of lying, if you really believe that political violence has no place in this country, why are you not doing everything in your power as the sitting party to disavow it and figure out who tried to kill not just a former president, but the front runner to be president? Why are you not trying to figure out who orchestrated all of this besides that guy? Assuming it's not just a lone wolf. Let's say it wasn't a lone wolf and it was multiple people involved. Why are you not finding out who helped orchestrate that, whether they are inside the government or not, and punish them to the fullest extent of the law? And even if it was a lone wolf, why are you not releasing all this to the public? And my message to the MAGA people is this: there is power in your voice. Just like with the hyper left, your hyper right people, there is power in your voice. Two examples. Shane Gillis and the Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light thing, and then the Target stuff. So when Bud Light or Anheuser-Busch made Dylan Mulvaney the spokesperson, the mascot or whatever for Bud Light, and then said they wanted to get away from their key customer base of frat boys or whatever, and it tanked them, so they replaced him with fucking Shane Gillis. Then with the whole Target stuff with the trans kids clothing, the pro-trans kids clothing, you guys hated that. You stopped shopping at Target and their shit tanked, so they got rid of it. You have the ability to protest with your voice and your wallet. They tried to kill your dude in 4K on live television. And in 2 weeks, you guys were mad about men in dresses at the Olympics. And I get it. I get it, dude. I'm Christian. I get it. I didn't like them mocking the Last Supper either. But we can get to that, man. I promise you we can get to that. The time's gone now. No, for the assassination attempt, I don't think so. But we could have gotten to that later. They tried to kill your guy in 4K on national television. This is not the 60s with John F. Kennedy, where it's like the Zapruder film and it has to get restored and there's like one angle and we don't really know. There were so many. Everyone has a camera in their pocket. Like the one thing the Democrats have right now, even after a loss, the one thing the Democrats have right now the Republicans haven't had, message discipline. They're focused. Whatever their talking points are, whatever their ideologies are, they are on point, they are focused. Everything from the president to local news stations, and they are just fucking hammering that shit down. MAGA Republicans, you guys get mad at fucking everything. Everything. Focus. They tried to kill your guy. Now, I've seen conflicting reports about this, but that rally may or may not have been the very first CNN rally that first rally that CNN live streamed on television. So what the fuck does that tell you? It's just all so concerning, dude. It's all so concerning. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he had a rangefinder. Yeah. So let's see what else we got here. 14 fucking people, dude. We're back down to 7. Oh well. I think all the MAGA people left. It was at 14 when I'm talking all the crazy shit about the what's it called? About the assassination attempt. It's at 14. But then I start calling out the MAGA people for their fuck up, and it drops back down to 7. That's my point. They just proved my fucking point. Who knows? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was bots. Who knows? Okay. We still got a ways to go. So, not really. We probably got another 30 minutes. So, Charleston, false rape accusation, assassination attempt. That's really all I want to say. So, like, really what that boiled down to was, like, because the media lies, right? Obviously, the corporate media has been really want to package this up, was the corporate media lies to you about COVID, lies to you about the Summer of Love during the BLM riots. They lied to you impartially about January 6th, about not talking about the agent provocateurs that were both at January 6th and the BLM riots. Yeah, again, lied to you about COVID, lied to you about these Trump accusations for 8 years. They're lying. And this is also the media apparatus that lied us into the Iraq War, lied us into Afghanistan. They've been lying us into war since post-World War II. So they have a history of lying. And I think the big linchpin moment was 9/11 and the Iraq War is the war on terror. Then they're lying to you about all these things. So it's like, are you surprised that people aren't believing you? And I say you, meaning the corporate media, they're not mainstream anymore. But the corporate media and the left, because they're all in bed together. Are we surprised? Are we surprised that no one believes you anymore? And they're either not voting for you or voting in protest of you. You literally lied yourself into this hole. None of this happens in a vacuum. Absolutely none of this. Okay. Let's check the chat one more time, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, dropped down to 5. Yep, pissed off more people. And it's also like 1 a.m, so they're probably going to bed. I should go to bed too. I have work in the morning. Alrighty, so against Kamala Harris, let's see. Okay, so the big one is the company she's keeping around her for the campaign. That's my big one. Because like she doesn't have a huge track record to really go off of. Now, granted, I understand that and this came up on the podcast that I did on Monday, the guest spot that I did, where like, she's throwing people into prison and withholding the DNA evidence. That's what Tulsi Gabbard smacked her down with. I can't speak on that because genuinely I've not learned enough about it. But if that's true, it's fucking horrible. And if true, certainly add it to the list. I'm not in favor of that. We already talked about the DEI stuff and the coup, but she really shot her. I want to say this again. She really shot herself in the foot when she endorsed everything that Biden did, and then took a step further and said that she was a part of every decision-making process and she wouldn't change anything. That really fucked her up. Yeah, I already talked about she could be anybody. The unrealistic policies were a bit of a scary thing because it would just add to the government spending, like the $25,000 for the housing, and then the student debt relief that never happened, and then like the banning price gouging. Now all of that now is null and void because she didn't win, so that's going to happen. But it was all things that either can't happen, like the price gouging stuff, or just adding to the deficit for the housing thing. So. But one thing I really want to harp on is the company she was keeping around her and comparing that to Donald Trump. So Donald Trump, right? JD Vance, which has he has an incredible future in politics, and I hope he sticks around. Very well spoken, very well thought out. I don't agree with everything he has to say, but for the most part, I agree with what he has to say. I'll be honest with you. From what I've seen of him. So, JD Vance, RFK, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, and I didn't want to throw celebrities into it, but Joe fucking Rogan, dude. I trust those people a hell of a lot more than I trust the Obamas, the Clintons, Tim Walz, because he got caught lying in the debate, and granted, I liked it, he admitted to it. I liked how just gentlemanly that debate was anyway, but last and not least, which I think was one of the biggest fuck yous to the American people from the Democratic Party, Liz and Dick Cheney. Are you kidding me? Like, we could go in on the Obamas or on the Clintons and Tim Walz, we can do that. But I want to spend the majority of my time on the Cheneys on this subject. Dick Cheney, one of the main architects of the war on terror, is now getting touted around by Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party. Oh, shit. And the Democratic Party as, look at this great Republican that saw the light and has changed over. What the fuck are you talking about? If you were to time travel 20 years ago to 2004 and say that George W. Bush and Dick Cheney would be better accepted at the DNC than the RNC, they would have called you a witch. They would have called you a mental patient. But that's the reality we lived in right now, where the Cheneys were getting touted around by the Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party apparatus, and Liz Cheney went on the campaign trail. And to double down on the lying, what did Trump say about Liz Cheney? He basically said that if she's such a war hawk, go to the front lines and have gun barrels pointed at you. And not for nothing, I agree with that. But what did the media turn it into? That he called for Liz Cheney's death. That is not what the fuck he said. And we all know that if you're an adult with a brain. He said that you should have consequences to your actions. If you call, and that has been such a fucking talking point of the Democratic Party for decades, where it was the old men that send the young ones to die in a war where they make money. How did they lose sight of that? And you know who fills the military? Not even racially speaking. Lower to lower middle income people. Because the military, for all of its faults, has benefits. Literally benefits. You're sending your poor off to die so you can make money. Does the word Halliburton not mean anything to anybody? Dick Cheney, come on, man. And the fact that the Democratic Party just ran with it, it's like, and nobody questioned it. Again, message discipline. Message fucking discipline. Nobody questioned that the Cheneys were getting touted around by Kamala and the Democratic Party. How out of touch can you be with your voting base? And yes, it is technically Out of Touch Thursdays, everybody. But like, how out of touch can you be with your voting constituency when they're calling to end wars? You hired the Cheneys. I don't know how much more I should explain that. It genuinely angers me. Like that part of this whole conversation, of this whole podcast, genuinely angers me. That their voting constituency is calling to end wars and you fucking hire the Cheneys. If that's not a middle finger to the American public, I don't know what is. And a point that I wanted to get on a little bit earlier with the Kamala Harris support. Kamala Harris could be anybody. You can't replace Donald Trump. They tried. That is what I will give the MAGA Republicans and the Republican Party as a whole. You can't replace Trump. And that was shown in the popular vote. They tried. They tried with DeSantis and they tried with Nikki Haley. And Nikki Haley had all of the big donors on the Republican Party. And she couldn't hack it. DeSantis ran one of the most successful states during Trump's presidency. Couldn't hack it. They wanted him. And guess what? There's this term that goes around, like the closeted Trump voters, where it's like, yeah, I don't know who I'm going to vote for, or I'm not going to vote, or I'm going to vote for Kamala, or I'm going to vote for Biden, but they really turn around and vote for Trump. A lot of closeted Trump supporters added themselves to last night. Let me fucking tell you. Again, I want to bring up these numbers one more time because it is insane. A little over 72.5 million votes against Harris's 68 million. And they're not even done counting yet. What does that tell you? Don't piss off your fucking voting constituency. Basic politics, man. All right. So I've kind of already talked about why I voted for Trump. Let me just make sure I don't get off of anything. Oh, we didn't even talk about fucking immigration. Holy cow. How do we not talk about immigration? The fucking border's a mess, dude. And and I've seen all these things like, oh, she wasn't the border czar. She's the border czar. Either way, regardless if she was the border czar or not, she co-signed everything Biden did and did not do. That includes the border. And whether or not, I see all the arguments, and Elon brought this up on the Rogan pod, and he's brought it up a lot of times, where they're saying that they're pumping all the cities full of immigrants to flub the numbers. Obviously, it didn't fucking work. And if that is true, it's absolutely fucking horrible. What my brain goes to is, even aside from the crime, right? So even aside from the incidences in Aurora, Colorado, with the Venezuelan gangs taking over the apartment complexes, that's horrible. I'm not downplaying that. But my concern is okay, if you have a bunch of people coming in here illegally, good people or not, and they're being afforded all these services that I'm reading about, whether it's the debit cards or the preloaded visas or housing, they're literally they fucking vacated schools in Chicago and Detroit or some shit. The reason I bring all this up is my concern is that they're taking away resources from American citizens. Like, what is, and I know this is a generic Republican talking point, but what is a country without borders in any real sense? What is a country without borders? And and I would take it even a step further than that. What is a country that doesn't protect its own people? You know what I mean? I don't even know if I have to harp on immigration anything more than that, just because I think that just speaks for itself. And the fact that so many, like, I turned on the election last night and I was flipping through the channels to figure out which one I wanted. And I landed on MSNBC and they were literally talking about how bad the immigration problem is in New York. So when even the fucking liberal media is saying how bad immigration is and how worried people are, it's a issue, man. Listen to your voting constituency. Holy cow. All right, before I get into my final talking points, let's see if there's anything in the chat. Yeah, Obama. Hey, we're back up to 5 people. At 1 a.m, let's fucking go. Please like and subscribe, man. I don't just do podcasting. I also am a stand-up comedian. Beginner, but stand-up comedian. Just joking. Thank you for subscribing, man. 7 viewers. Let's fucking go. Please follow, subscribe. I'm uploading more stand-up as the weeks go on. Got shows coming up. Life is cool, man. You guys are all helping me do this for a real life living, so thank you very much. All right, so I've talked a lot about why I voted for Trump, like the things that I do like about him, so I kind of just want to run through my stuff really quick to make sure there's anything I really want to harp on right now. I don't think so. Like, again, the foreign policy, the economy that he had, the grassroots support, the company he had around him. I'm very excited for RFK. I'm very excited to see what he does. Now, I get that I say that while drinking a Diet Dr. Pepper, but, you know, it is what it is. Like, I'm very excited to see what RFK does. I'm very excited to see what type of investigations happen, whether it's into food companies, whether it's into big pharma. My thing is, I really enjoy that he's been saying this recently, that him and Donald Trump have been talking about getting rid of pharmaceutical ads. And while that might seem superficial to some people, because not a lot of people watch the news, and at least me anyway, or watch cable TV, at least me anyway, I don't get a lot of pharmaceutical ads on my YouTube channel. But what I will say is that, you know, it's a step in the right direction. Especially when you have these extreme things like with the COVID shot where they were literally protected against vaccine injuries. And you can get into the really ugly stuff like the Tuskegee experiment overseas. And just like all the and just the how, like, you know, doctors get money on the back end for pumping out medications and pharmaceuticals, and how unsafe a lot of these pharmaceuticals are. Like, how actually, I'm gonna look this up before I actually say this statistic because I'm sure it's changed. So how many pharmaceuticals cause suicidal ideation? I don't even know if I'll get a real number. Let's see. So as of let's see, let's find like a recent one that can give me some kind of statistic. So like as of 2019, okay, so 44 drugs were linked to a decrease in suicide attempts. Okay, that's good. So, but why can't it give me a number of how many? Okay, so, but I'll try to find a better like statistic about this, or like a more, not better. I don't like saying that because that sounds like there's one off of Vox, but I don't know how much I believe them, and it's of back in 2018. Like this one says, depression and suicide are side effects of more than 200 common drugs. I wouldn't be surprised, but like I would like to get this off of like a .org or a .gov. You know what I mean? But you know, when you're taking like a fucking I don't know, like when you're taking like a digestive medicine, or you're taking, or even like, especially something like when you're taking a fucking antipsychotic, something that's supposed to make you feel better, and it says a side effect is suicidal ideation. So I'd like to see what investigations happen there. I would like to see what happens with the food companies. I'm just very excited to see what RFK does. You know what I mean? Because he's even said it himself. He's not anti-vax. He's just like, how can we make these safer? Which I find it hard to disagree with. I like Vivek. I like the things that he says about censorship, and I like the things he said about dismantling the Fed. I like what Vivek has to say. I think he's a voice of a younger generation, so I like to see him being the future along with, JD Vance. As far as Tulsi Gabbard goes, I love her being a part of the Republican Party now because she's so anti-war, and to put it into her words, she is anti-regime change war, so I love that a lot. Very excited about her. Elon, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. One of the richest, most smartest men on the planet, and he's fucking on Trump's team. I'm all for that. I'm just trying to make sure I didn't lose any names. Nope. And then, Joe Rogan. To flip somebody like Joe Rogan, where he goes from, I'm not having Trump on the podcast, I have no interest in helping him, to endorsing him. Joe Rogan's not a dummy. But I'm also biased, so what are you going to do? Okay, that's all my things that are for Trump. Now, against Trump, we talked about foreign policy in Israel. What time is it? It's 1 a.m. So we can talk about that later. But the foreign policy in Israel and AIPAC, long story short, I don't want a foreign government's lobbying committee in my fucking government. Sorry. And Benjamin Netanyahu is committing a fucking categorical genocide, and it needs to stop. And Trump is pro-Israel to the point of he's pro-Israel, but he's pro-Benjamin Netanyahu, which I think is scarier and an important distinction. So fucking hate that. I hate how he handled lockdowns and handled Fauci, government spending. Meh on the Abraham Accords. The Republican Party, I think this is a very interesting point. The Republican Party, they have a real issue with being conservatives. And what I mean by that is, what are they conserving? And I think, well, I know that Trump getting elected is a huge step in the right direction. But, it's like, what have they really conserved? Traditional conservative values are slipping away like crazy. Hopefully they come back. The good ones come back under Trump, but we'll fucking see. But that's more of a knock on the party than it is Trump himself. I think I've covered all that pretty much. Yeah, it's 1 a.m., so we're going to wrap it up here. I'm sure there's things that I've missed, and I'm sure I'm going to go to bed here in a second. I'm like, fuck, I should have said this. Or tomorrow I'm like, I didn't say that right. Or da-da-da-da. What I would say to everyone listening is just that this really wasn't anything to change your mind. This was something just to make you think and make you ask questions. And I think that's one of your biggest civic duties as Americans. The number one, our very first, our very first amendment is the freedom of speech. And I'm a big believer in that. And a part of freedom of speech is the freedom to question. Freedom to question your government. Question those around you. Question those in power. And I already know the liberals are going to do it, so I'm not worried about you guys. But listen, to all the MAGA Republicans out there, and even just Republicans in general, I'm glad there's 9 people. Yes, I just see how high the stocks went. I'm glad there's 9 people here. Now 8, but 9. Okay. Listen, man. If you're somebody who voted for Donald Trump, question him. Question his authority. Question his decisions. Question the Republicans in power. Now more than ever, because they have so much power in our government, question them and hold them accountable. Write your senator. Write your congressman. Talk on social media. Find a platform to talk on. Do protests. Whatever you feel like you have to do that holds the government accountable, that is legal, do it. They are public servants. Do I believe that Donald Trump believes he's a public servant? I'm not convinced. I believe J.D. Vance does more than anybody else. And same with Vivek and RFK and Tulsi. But that's the product of Trump being Trump. But they are public servants. Whether it's the president, whether it's your mayor, whether it's your governor, no matter what party they're in. But I really want to speak to Republicans right now. Do not fall into this cult of personality that so many of you have. Do not fall into this MAGA fucking pit movement where it's Donald Trump can do no wrong. Donald Trump has done wrong. Donald Trump will do wrong in the future. Not just because he's a human, but because he's a politician. They do bad things. Whether you find out about it or not. Hold them accountable. Hold him accountable. Hold his administration accountable. That's the only way this country gets better. God, I hope that fucking sticks, man. And I hope people listen to this. And to the left, people that voted for Kamala Harris, I understand why you're upset. I understand why you're frustrated. And on some of the points where you are frustrated, I feel for you. However, you have the biggest duty right next to the Republicans of holding Trump accountable. Hold your party accountable. Your party failed you. They heard your cries. They said, you want war? You hate the economy? Go fuck yourself. That's what your party told you. Sorry. They focused way too much on social issues. They focused way too much on social issues and abortion. They focused on that. And they didn't focus on the fucking genocide that they are perpetrating right now. They didn't focus on the Ukrainian war that could potentially lead us to nuclear holocaust, which, by the way, you can't have an abortion during a nuclear holocaust. Sorry. I'm more concerned about a nuclear holocaust than I am about fucking reproductive rights right now. I'm sorry. That's just the truth. And obviously, a lot of Americans agree with me. That being said, get your party together. Whether it's locally, whether it's on the federal level, hold them accountable. Because you know who's up next? If I had to wager, it's going to be Bernie Sanders being like the elder sage, and it's going to be AOC in the squad. That's who you've got on the bench. Hold them accountable. This can either be one of the most healing parts of America's history or one of the most divisive, and we've been through divisive. It is on all of us, man. And both Republicans and Democrats alike, what I will say, do your best to find middle ground with each other. Hold these people accountable. Hold their feet to the fire. And be good to each other, man. Being divisive is not going to solve anything. Now, I'm going to end with this. I said on my Instagram story that I had something I wanted to announce, something I wanted to say. And I want to open this up to absolutely everybody. Anybody who is watching this. I have displayed my points the best that I can about why I voted for Donald Trump and why I voted against the Democratic Party. That being said, if you watch this podcast, if you watched highlights of it, or if you're just seeing this part of it, if you disagree with anything that I said and you are willing to come and debate me about it, if you're willing to come have a conversation about it, my door and my DMs are completely open to you. I will push back previous schedulings that I have. I will clear my schedule. I want to have these conversations. I want to publicize these conversations because they are important. Please reach out to me. I will get you scheduled, and I'll do one better as well. We will do a recurring episode every year tracking the progress of Donald Trump's presidency and into the new administration that comes in 2028. That is my challenge to anyone listening to this who disagrees with me and wants to debate me further. I am open to doing it. I pride myself on speaking to people that have the same views as me, polar opposite views of me, and everything in the middle. I pride myself on that. For everything this podcast is, I know it's that. And if you don't believe me, look at the roster. I want to end with a quote from Dave Smith that I liked a lot. And I think it applies to me at a lower level. I'm not as smart as he is. Whether you agree with me or you disagree with me about what I've said here tonight, I'm just a comedian who reads. That's all I am. I'm just a guy. These are my views. This is how I digested them. And I've done my best to articulate them to everyone who is watching, whether you stuck around with me to 1:11 in the morning, just over 2 hours of podcasting, or you're watching this down the line. I really appreciate you guys watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. DM me. I don't give a fuck. I'm not that hard to find. This has been a lot of fun. I'm hoping you guys had a good time too, whether you agreed or disagreed. Stand-up shows coming up. I got Casales this weekend, and we're at the Block every Tuesday, and we've got Safe House on the 22nd. Thank you guys for the support. Couldn't do this without you guys. Bye-bye.